Hello world, it's Sunday the 22nd of January 2023 and we're looking at a forecast for the magic soaring weather in Worcester for tomorrow, Monday the 23rd of January. It's the second day of the sailplane Grand Prix qualifying competition. Looking quickly at, and I'll start on this one, Worcester at 2 o'clock. We can see slightly cooler day, but notably we have this wind which is 20 something knots on the ground, picking up quickly to 25 knots and increases with speed all the way up to high altitude. It's a northwest wind, it's our classic northwester, and this is the real one that's got the energy that goes all the way up. So there's a lot of energy in that northwest and it's typically associated with wave. We also have thermic at 4,500 feet, which is great, brings us a few more options. Let's go out to 5 o'clock and we see thermic has dropped a little bit, but the northwest is still howling. Very quickly from ground level it gets up to 25, in this case 25 knots. Now the northwester has got a lot of energy in it and it can be quite turbulent, this wind shear that we get close to the ground. So it's conditions where you have to be very careful flying circuits, particularly if you do a low energy finish and a low level circuit over the trees. And this condition here is not recommended. Please be very careful. Let's look at this wind in more detail. This is a surface wind at 2 o'clock and you notice we get these bands where the wind velocity varies as we go down the valley. That is associated with wave. Each of these bands corresponds with a wave that's forming in the atmosphere above us. We can see that the darkest red portion of this is about 24 knots, and the way I interpret how this is experienced on the ground is we get winds which gust, and the maximum gust speed is typically the same as the highest wind speed that we get anywhere in this wave pattern. So obviously the lower wind speeds in between the gusts, and it will gust basically from the, and with that there's turbulence and rolling turbulence and things down the runway. Fortunately, this is only 25 knots. It's not too bad. It's not really a problem for the tugs, and we should manage with a little bit of care. We see up to 35, 40 knots, and that is a different animal altogether. Just zooming out, well, let's quickly look at the real wind on the ridges. That is 12 to 14, 15 knots on the front ridge, and the same on the Witzenberg, and it's blowing at a good angle to those ridges. Zooming out, Renosterhoek is about there. Clan William and actually Clover is right on the edge of this map, which is possibly not that accurate. But all of this area we're sitting with wind speed of 10, 12 maybe knots, slightly faster in places, right down to the tunnel or thereabouts. That's at 2 o'clock. 5 o'clock, this wind's actually moved slightly southwest. We still have the wave pattern in the valley, and we still got good speeds of 12 to 14, 15 knots on Witzenberg, the front ridge, and Porterville. Let's just calibrate. That's 10 knots, that's 14 knots, say 10 to 12 knots on most of this, and a little bit more on the Witzenberg going out towards Claver. Cloud. There's some cloud coming in from the southwest, which is a bit unusual. Doesn't reach us by 2 o'clock. Zooming out, we see it does reach a Swillen Dam area, but I'm not sure we're going to go that direction. We'll look later. 5 o'clock, this cloud moves onto the front ridge, but it's still quite high. 4.5, 5, maybe even 5,500 feet, and even higher on the Witzenberg. So it is some cloud, but it will be high cloud. Zooming out, well, there's that patch of cloud. I see it gets up as nearly as far as Porterville, and to the east we have some cloud which we can think about just now. Just looking at the top of thermal heights, there's some interesting ones. It gets quite high in places, particularly to the east. This might come in if you do an interesting task, just bear that in mind. But in the valley itself, not so exciting, and particularly this is zooming out. 5 o'clock, we've got some patches in the Worcester Valley that are looking quite dead. And also out towards Claver, that is sitting now in this light blue, which is 2,500 feet. So that's not the time of day that you want to be at Claver. A little bit further in, it's still better, 3.5, but not quite reaching 4 at Clanwilliam, but we'll see on the soundings. Let's just look at the cross sections. This one's at 925 millibar, just over 3,000 feet, and this is 2 o'clock in the valley. Besides, Vic Peak has got some good lift here. There's no obvious places to tow gliders to. If we tow a bit higher, then we can see there's an option in under Tours and maybe around Waihook. Oldenburg, I'm not so sure is going to work. It's certainly at 3,000 it doesn't look too exciting, and at 4 there's something there. If we go up higher, this is 700 millibar, that's is higher than we allowed to. Well, you can get that in the Hicks River Valley, but most of this is in controlled airspace. But there's a beautiful wave pattern, and this dark red is between 3 and 4 meters a second, so that's where the real energy is. 925 millibar, this is 5 o'clock, similar. There is still some sign of wave at Vic Peak, Rawsonville on the spur, Yonder Tours, and some more in Slanghoek Valley, and at 700 that's wave. This wave system is still booming above us. Looking at some soundings, Tulbach. Just remember the 3 checks that we look for when we look at these soundings. The first is the wind speed. This one is about 15 knots, which we say minimum of 8 knots, so check 1, good. Wind direction, that's not too far off the ridge. It's about 70 degrees from parallel to the ridge, which is pretty good. Check 2. Thermic height is over 4,000 feet, which is basically the height of the ridge, or nearly the height of the ridge, and it's quite good thermic. Check 3. That ridge is going to light up the Witzenberg like anything. 5 o'clock on the Witzenberg, some things have cooled down. The wind speed is lower, the thermic is lower, the direction is still good. Actually, that should still work nicely. Porterville, the wind speed is quite a lot less, but the direction is good. It's still, that's 10 knots, that's looking like 5 knots, but the thermic is good and the direction is good, which is going to keep it going. 5 o'clock, still 10 down to 5 knots, in fact down to 0, but that's actually above the ridge. Still got some thermic, direction good, it's going to work. Worcesterhoek is good. Worcesterhoek 5 o'clock, that inversion is low, but the ridge is low. It should still work. This is below, this is above the height of the ridge. You're probably not getting much above 2,500 there. Clanwilliam, thermal height, we need a bit more. The mountains are taller and we're getting it, so that's about 4,500, 5,000 feet at 2 o'clock. It's a possibility. Direction's quite good. Wind speed is 10 knots. By 5 o'clock in Clanwilliam, that is now looking a bit of a problem because our thermic is a bit too low and the wind drops off. A lot of the ridges in the Cederberg Mountains are over 4,000 feet, so you need a bit more height to make them work. Clava, good at 2, not so good at 5. So yeah, lots of options to go north. It should be good if you do go far north, be on your way home before it's say 4 o'clock or so. The fun tomorrow will be where to launch the gliders and how to set a task. And it's possible that, if I go back to this one, that we launch on Vic Peak and start the task in Wave. That might be one option for getting everybody out. But that's for the contest director to work out with the task setters. I will watch and see how you do. Enjoy your flying. Be careful, particularly with the northwest wind and the turbulence associated with it. Fly safely and have fun. And I will update this in the morning with a text update after between 7 and 8 in the morning. Enjoy.